Okay, so briefly yesterday, like really briefly, we talked about standard form of a complex number. And I think Gavin's the one that said it was a plus bi.
Yes, I did.
Okay, you have your real part, and then you have your imaginary part. The real part always comes first. Okay, so when you're writing it in standard form, the real part always comes first. Okay, how you get I, how you get an imaginary number I, which is a lowercase I, don't make it capital, okay, is because you took the square root of a negative. So if I want to get I squared, well, I squared is the same thing as taking I times I. Anytime you multiply square roots that are exactly the same, your answer is what's inside there. So anytime you see an I squared, you're going to replace it with -1. So you can't have anything higher than I in your standard form equation. Okay? Okay, so we're going to perform the operations. We're going to do adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. And then we're talking about solving with quadratic formula. And this will get you all the way through this section, which will be your homework, which is from page 167. Alright, so when you're simplifying, look at the square root. Okay, is the square root of 9 perfect?
Yes.
Okay, square root of 9 is 3. Since it has a negative, that means it has an I that goes with it. So you do the square root like you would normally do, but because there's a negative inside, that means you have an I. Okay, I part comes second, real part comes first, so that is your answer. Okay, 27. 27 is not a perfect square root. So what you're going to have to do is you're going to do your factor trees just like we've done already this year. So I would break down 27. So I bring in the 9 and 3. Break 9 into 3 and 3. So then I have a pair of 3's. So this would be 2 minus 3. And then I have my I square root of 3. I's never go inside the square roots, so I always put it out in front. If you want to put it afterwards, make sure that the I is definitely not inside the radical. So this is the reason why I do like this. I don't have to worry about that. You'll see it in the book where they have it after, but it's not inside of the square root. So make sure if you're going to put it after that, make sure it's clearly not inside the radical. Everybody okay so far? Alright, -6i plus I squared. Okay, I can't have I squared, so what am I going to replace I squared with? -1, so I would have -6i minus 1. Okay, but that's not my final answer because I need to have the real part first. I'm going to have to flip them. So I would have -1 minus 6i. So the real part's always going to come first. Okay, so adding and subtracting. This one's subtracting because there's a minus sign in between. This one's adding because there's a plus sign. Neither one of those are multiplying problems. Okay, it's multiplying when there's no sign in between. So when you're doing your operation, you're combining like terms, but make sure you pay attention to whatever this sign is. So since that's minus, this would be 8 minus 4, which is 4. negative I minus negative I would be negative I plus I, which would be 0I. So you can have it like that, or your answer, how I would put it, I would just put 4. But if you want to put plus 0I, it's the same thing.
You said that again with the 0.
Okay, so when these canceled, this actually gave me 0. You can put 0I, but if a 0 is in front of something, it's like it doesn't exist.
But you still put the I. Okay.
It's like if I were to take x minus x, I would either have nothing or I would put 0x.
Okay.
So it's the same thing with an I.
Okay.
So I would just do this instead of putting it there. It doesn't actually go, the I doesn't go away, it's the number in front of it that goes away to 0. I know it's kind of weird, isn't it?
And is I squared always negative 1?
Always negative 1, yes. Okay, number 5 we're going to add. But before you add, you need to make sure you simplify the radicals. So is 8 perfect square? No, so we're going to break it down. So 4 and 2, 4 breaks into 2 and 2. So I would have negative 2 plus, I have a pair of 2, so 2I square root of 2. Okay, then I have plus, so on my 5, minus. Okay, if I break down 50, 5 and 10, 10 breaks into 5 and 2. So I have a pair of 5s. So this would be 5I square root of 2. Okay, so we're adding. So when you combine those, negative 2 plus 5 be 3. Okay, these are the same thing. They're both square root of 2's. So 2I square root of 2 minus 5I square root of 2 would be negative 3I square root of 2. Okay, so any questions about adding or subtracting? Everybody's good so far? Okay, multiplying. When you're multiplying, you're distributing or foiling like you would do if they were x's. So 1 times 3, 3. 1 times negative 2I, negative 2I. I times 3, 3I. I times negative 2I, negative 2I squared. Okay, what's I squared equal to? Negative 1. So this is actually going to become negative 2 times negative 1, which is 2. So when I combine like terms, 3 plus 2, 5. Negative 2I plus 3I would be plus 1I. Bless you. I would normally write through there, but the video is going to cut off like right here, so we don't have enough space. Okay, well, square root of 14 or square root of 10, either one of those break down? No. Okay, 14 is 2 and 7, nothing perfect. 10 is 2 and 5, nothing perfect. Okay, so when I multiply them, and I FOIL this out, when you multiply two square roots that are exactly the same, it's the number inside. So square root of 14 times square root of 14 is 14. Square root of 14 times negative I squared of 10, those numbers are both on the inside, so those get multiplied together. So that would be negative I squared root of 140. And then I squared root of 10 times square root of 14 would be plus I square root of 140. Okay, and then if I multiply the last terms, what's I times I? I squared. What's square root of 10 times square root of 10? 10. So this would be minus 10I squared. Which is 10, right? Why is it 10?
I squared.
I squared is negative 1. So if you can do that all in your head in one step, do it in one step. Okay, so if I combine like terms, what's my final answer going to be? 14 plus 10, which is 24. Because I squared of 140 and negative I squared of 140 cancel each other out. Okay, if you have something that's squared, this isn't just squaring both parts on the inside. This is where you write it twice, or if it's a cube, you'd write it 3 times, and you multiply it together. Okay, so go ahead and multiply that out, and then check with your groupies to see if you have the same answer.
I got 9.
If you have groupies, unless you chose to sit by yourself. Okay, you're done?
It's close.
Okay, you should have got negative 9 plus 40i.
We got 35, so.
Okay, so that covers multiplying. Is there any questions about multiplying? Okay, dividing. You cannot have an I in a denominator because an I is a square root. Because I is technically square root of negative 1. So what we're going to do is, before we just talked about conjugates, now when you're talking about complex numbers, they're called complex conjugates. It's the same thing when we just had square roots without negatives. All you do is change the middle sign. So when you want to find a conjugate, you just change the middle sign. Okay, now when you're dividing and there's just an I on bottom, that doesn't have a conjugate. So like if I want to simplify number 9, all you do is, it's just like, that would be like if I had it over square root of 2. You would just multiply top and bottom by square root of 2. Since this is an I, you're going to multiply top and bottom by I. Whatever you say, you're on camera, just FYI. What?
Hit pause.
I can't, I can only stop it.
You just tell me on camera we're off.
Alright, what's I squared equal to? I squared is equal to negative 1, right?
Yeah.
So this would be 5i over negative 1, which is negative 5i. Is he just going to come back?
Probably not.
Try it later.
Hit pause. I can't. I feel like it's better off I tell him ahead of time before he like says something. Not that he would say anything bad, but like. Everybody okay? You're good? Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. What is the
He went to somebody else to get what he wanted.
Why? You never knew that.
Take this.
I thought they were saying
Okay, this one will have a conjugate. So the conjugate would be 4 plus 5i. So you still multiply top and bottom by that. Okay, so if I distribute, this would be 8 plus 10i on top. Then on bottom, this would be 16 plus 20i minus 20i minus 25i squared. Okay, if your i's do not cancel in the denominator, you multiply by something incorrectly. So your i's should always cancel. And what's I squared equal to?
Negative
Negative 1, so this is going to give you, that's going to cancel out your I. So then this would be 8 plus 10i over 16 plus 25, which is 41. Does anything go into 8, 10, and 41? No. Nope, so you're done. If it does, then you would divide it out with all these boxes. Okay, we're going to do one more dividing. And you're going to have something similar to this on your homework. And then we have one more section. Is your future so bright? You have to wear shades.
It's cloudy out.
Okay, you cannot do conjugates unless you just have an I. Now I purposely picked this problem because we've already solved that bottom part out. So it kind of saves us this step. What?
We're trying to figure out what you mean by saying conjugate. Like, what is the conjugate?
When you change the middle sign. So like, this is 4 minus 5i. So my conjugate becomes 4 plus 5i.
Okay, so it's what is the denominator?
It's always the denominator. Change the middle sign. Okay? Now, if there's like this where it doesn't have anything, you just multiply top and bottom by that term. Okay? Okay, so if this is a squared, the first thing you're going to have to do is solve this. Well, I purposely did this so you already have it solved so I can skip a step. So this would be 3i over negative 9 plus 40i. Bless you. Okay, so Olivia, what would my conjugate be?
Negative 9 minus 40i.
Good job. So this would be negative 9 minus 40i. I'm hoping this is still on the screen.
Yeah, you're good. Yeah, you're good.
I'm good? Okay. So if I multiply this, this would be negative 27i minus 120i squared on top. okay, over 81 plus 360i minus 360i minus 1,600i squared.
Shouldn't that be right?
Okay, can I simplify the top? Yeah. Okay, I have the I squared up here, so remember this is going to be positive 120 now? But it needs to come first because it's real part. So this would be 120 minus 27i. Okay, and then the denominator, i's cancel. This is going to become 1,600. So this would be 1,681. That does not reduce. Okay, but what we're parsing.
Flip the sign.
Now when you have fractions, please let them write.
Okay, are there any other questions over dividing before we move on to solving? Everybody's okay? Okay, now you should know the quadratic formula. But some of you I know just memorize to get by for a test, but it's not actually like stored up there in your brain.
That song is not
That's
always
song.
Every single time I sing it, every week I write it.
So I wrote it up here if you're somebody that doesn't have it memorized. If you already have it, then you're good to go.
Yeah, can you guys sing it?
No, actually.
What song?
Maybe we can make a video of you singing it so then it'll be on canvas.
Get these trees down
Oh,
here.
no. Well, I know that, I'm not sure I know the song, so. Yeah, I don't, not gonna be part of that.
Okay, so we're going to solve some of the, I'm not going to say all of them, but the whole point of practicing this is for when you would have imaginary numbers. So when you're solving, a lot of these are going to have imaginary numbers in them. I'm not saying that they all are. I can't remember exactly which ones I assigned to you. Okay? But you're probably going to have imaginary numbers. Alright, so we're going to solve using the quadratic formula. So opposite of b, so I would have 2, and then plus or minus the square root of negative 2 squared minus 4 times 1 times 2 all over 2 times 1. Okay, so if I simplify inside the square root, this would be 4 minus 8, which is negative 4. So now I have 2 plus or minus the square root of negative 4 over 2. Okay, is 4 a perfect square root? Yeah, square root of 4 is 2. And since there's a negative, that means I need to have an I. So this would be 2 plus or minus 2i over 2. And does anything go into 2, 2, and 2? 2 does.
2 does.
Okay, here's a big thing a lot of you are going to forget. How many times does 2 go into 2?
Once.
Okay, you have to put the 1 there. This is 1, and then plus or minus 1i or just I. If you have the I, you don't have to put a 1 in front of the variables. But when you have just numbers, that still factors out to 1. And why do I have solution sets? Multiple answers, good. Okay. Alright, let's do another one. Okay, so I would have negative 16 plus or minus the square root of 16 squared minus 4 times 4 times 17 all over 2 times 4. And I can't multiply this in my head. Okay, so this would be 256 minus 272, which is negative 16. So I would have negative 16 plus or minus the square root of negative 16 over 8. Okay, what is the square root of negative 16? 4i.
4i.
Okay, does anybody think going to 16, 4, and 8? 4. So this would be negative 4 plus or minus I
2.
over 2. And you do not have to split those up. You can leave them combined like that for your answer. Okay, these last two we're not actually going to solve, but I'm going to show you how to set up fractions and decimals. Okay, you cannot have decimals or fractions within square roots and have them within fractions. Okay, so what we're going to have to do is, I think it's easiest if you get rid of them at the beginning than trying to rationalize denominators at the end. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to multiply. We can multiply because there's an equal sign. So if you're looking at fractions, you're going to multiply both sides by whatever the denominator is. So the denominator is 2. You're going to multiply both sides by 2. So then I would have 3x squared minus 12x plus 18 equals 0. And then I do the quadratic formula for that. Okay, I'm not going to finish solving it out, but if you want to, you can. So whatever the denominator is, that's what you're going to multiply by. Okay, if you have decimal places, one decimal place is called tenths, 2 decimal places is called hundredths, 3 is thousandths, 4 10,000. Okay, however many decimal places you have is what number you're going to multiply by. So this has tenths. So that means I'm going to multiply both sides by 10. So then I would have 14x squared minus 20x minus 100 equals 0. Because otherwise you're going to have to deal with trying to convert to a fraction and then rationalizing it later. Whereas if you just do it now, you don't have to worry about it. Okay. Okay, this is going to get you all the way through the first part, the page 167. I know some of you are probably not going to work on it this weekend. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday are all video days. So that means you're going to have, Wednesday will not be here. So Tuesday and Thursday you're going to have your videos to watch, and then you'll have class time to work. And I will be here on Tuesday and Thursday to help you. So make sure you watch the videos ahead of time, that way you can get your homework problems done, that way you can get questions answered. Okay?